The economic recovery we're seeing in the United States right now is unlike any in decades. This current recovery isn't just remarkably rapid, it's especially improving the lives of working-class Americans. That's a huge change from recent decades, and it's being driven by democratic policies that were passed and implemented in the last year.
But we still have a long way to go.
We have a long way to go, but we are on the way.
We're still at least 6 million jobs short of where we should be, which disproportionately affects Black and brown communities. Mothers and caregivers are still juggling an untenable workload. And people are rightly worried about higher than expected inflation.
These are serious concerns that need policy responses. Yet we can't lose sight that the recovery so far is going remarkably well for everyday workers.
Here are 4 key markers of Democrats' economic success so far. First, job growth. The U.S. has added an average of 582,000 jobs per month in 2021, for a total of 5.8 million new jobs this year.
By comparison, that dwarfs the monthly job growth after the Great Recession of 2009, which averaged just 130,000 jobs per month from 2010 to 2011. Even as the Delta variant raged during the end of the summer and into the fall, job growth averaged 442,000 jobs a month from August to October. That makes this one of the fastest recoveries from one of the biggest downturns in decades. It's not only jobs that are growing. By the best measure, wages are up dramatically too.
Second, wages. Wages and salaries increased 4.6% for the 12-month period ending September 2021. What's even better is that wages are increasing, especially for those who've historically been left behind during past recoveries. Younger workers, ages 16 to 24, have seen a 9.7% wage increase. Workers with a high school education, low-skill workers, and those at the bottom of the income distribution have all seen stronger than average wage jumps. The bottom 20% of earners have seen a 5.1% raise.
Even when you account for the effects of inflation, real wages are up for those who make the least. Multiple studies find that the bottom 70% of workers are seeing real hourly wage increases, a major break from previous recoveries.
So let's be clear about what's going on. Job growth and wage growth have been spurred by passage of the American Rescue Plan and targeted federal stimulus. And as a result, working families have more of a financial cushion than they did before the pandemic.
Third, household wealth. Consider this amazing statistic. The bottom 50% of households now have more than $3 trillion in wealth. That's up nearly 20% from early 2021 and up 55% from pre-pandemic levels.
This is due in large part to Democratic investments in stimulus, unemployment benefits, the child tax credit, food assistance payments, and more.
Consequently, Americans have seen their checking and savings accounts grow. Personal savings, which peaked at an all-time high in the early months of the pandemic, have averaged about 9% from June to September 2021. In July 2021, families' cash balances were more than 50% higher than they were pre-pandemic.
This is true for families at all income levels, but especially for those at the low end of the income distribution, who saw the largest percent increases of these gains. And as a result, Democratic policies have given strength to laborers across America. And finally, worker power. With more wealth and greater prospects for the future, American workers now feel secure enough to leave their jobs and find new ones with better wages and working conditions. The hiring rate is at record highs. The job switching rates are at pre-pandemic levels. And the quit rate spiked to 3% in September, a record high for the 21st century.
Some might wonder if job quitting is a good thing. Yes, it is. It's important for workers because job switching is a key driver of wage increases. It's also important for the economy as a whole, as workers switching jobs to find better matches for their skills leads to higher long-term economic growth. According to Gallup polls, a record high 74% say now is a good time to find a quality job. Strikes and solidarity actions are on the rise around the country. So far this year, there have been more than 922 strikes and labor protests across industries. 13 have involved more than 1,000 workers. contrasted with an average of only 8 per year from 2009 to 2010 following the Great Recession.
Importantly, voters of all political and age groups are supportive of these efforts. 68% of Americans approve of labor unions, the highest rate since 1965.
So here's the key takeaway. Because of Democratic policies, we're trending towards a historic economic recovery. There's still a long way to go and more work to do. Both the inflation we see and the lack of sufficient support for caregiving can be addressed by combating COVID and through investments in our supply chains and care work infrastructure.
We must also undo decades of disinvestment and corporate practices that have consolidated markets and made us so vulnerable to inflation during this rapid recovery. But if we're going to continue to make progress, it's vital that we learn the right lessons about the progress we're already making.
And it's also vital that we talk positively about these changes to ensure that we're informing voters about the work we've done.
We have to keep it going by passing another bold recovery bill that locks in these gains and structurally improves the lives of working Americans.